Hey, Steve Mayeda here. Welcome to this amazing interview with Zan Perrion. If you don't know who Zan Perrion is and you're in the men's development industry or looking to better yourself as a man, especially when it comes to understanding the power of your masculinity and the power of the feminine, you need to know who Zan Perrion is. Now, this is a podcast I recorded years ago. In fact, 2 years ago, of course, obviously with Zan for my own podcast. It's separate from the 21 Convention podcast, but very similar. And we talk about a lot of good stuff. You know, Zan is a guy who's been teaching for almost 20 years now. I've known him for 8, and he's always had a consistent message of being yourself, being a proud man, not being ashamed of being sexual, not being ashamed of desiring the feminine, and really getting to understand both. He's a philosopher, he's a coach, he's a very, very wise man, author of a book, The Alabaster Girl. You should pick it up. And also, more importantly, he is going to be a featured speaker at the Miami 2016 21 Convention. You can sign up for that or find out more information on the speakers for that upcoming event in Miami at the21convention.com/events, or you can just go to the21convention.com and browse through whatever's going on and click the events button and get all the information and details you need. Guys, this is an amazing podcast. If you have any questions or comments, leave them down in the comment box down below. We'll get back to you. And then also, if you have any questions about how to become a part of 21 University or get involved with the 21 Convention, you can also click the links just below this podcast. Let's enjoy this very special interview with Mr. Zan Perrion. All right, here we are with Zan Perrion. What is happening? You are man, I've been working in this industry for a long time, but you have been in it longer, far longer, and have carried a consistent message, which I think is absolutely important, about beauty, about seduction, about women. And you have never wavered from that. And it's truly like a lighthouse. You know, I don't know if you know this because I think you're so out of the scene, but I mean, you're one of the few guys that I think has a message that has always been about beauty, sex, love, connection, and for all the right reasons. So, man.
Yeah.
Tell us about like how this all started.
Oh boy, how did it all start? Well, man, I've been doing this a long time, as you said, and obviously it started when I was very young. Like I've been in love with the idea of women and trying to seek out the beauty of women and the feminine spirit for so long that I've essentially created my life around it, and everything I do has been in the service of that. So. I guess the short answer to how it all started is like I have been in love with women since is just about the only thing that I've ever really been drawn to, and the energy of women. So it's kind of a natural thing for me to just keep talking about it and be excited about it, I guess.
So you have said that your passion, your drive in life is, I could be wording this wrong, but is women, is the pursuit of women, the pursuit of beauty. Explain a little bit more of that, because a lot of people, when they talk about passions or their drive, you know, it's all this other stuff. But for you, it is the pursuit of that beauty.
It's beauty. It's like I've had this conception for years that we've forgotten beauty. I mean, even the philosophers, you think, they went through all different phases of philosophy. And there was a great stage of philosophy where the aesthetic was a dominant type of philosophy, and people tried to understand, what is aesthetics, what is beauty, what is harmony and symmetry. And there's very few philosophers talking about aesthetics today because of our consumerist utilitarian drive, and we're entrepreneurs today as opposed to thinkers and philosophers and artists. I mean, like all the weekend events we take are how to be a better business. All the books we buy are business books, how to be an entrepreneur, how to do these types of things. And that's what we call success in this modern age. So I think we've forgotten the ability to slow down and contemplate beauty and seek beauty. And so there's a misconception out there that Steve, that I'm saying that all women are beautiful no matter what. I'm saying I start from a position that feminine grace is beautiful, Doesn't mean all women are beautiful, because there's a lot of, insecure, catty, bitchy women, just like there's a lot of insecure, catty, bitchy men. And so, but to start with the default of saying what is beautiful in my career, in my relationship, in this woman I'm meeting, start with that default until proven different, as opposed to the other way around.
Yeah.
I think.
No, man, it's interesting. This is something that I take it as a guy that, sell everything and travel the world. One of the mottos, gosh, and some of the guys like Jordan, who works with you, and Canute, have stayed at my place on like brief in and out stints. Man, no, great people, and I'll tell you this, like I meet very few people in the seduction industry that you really just kind of can have a conversation with, because a lot of times it is like, oh, this is how much money I make. These are the women that I have. And this is how cool I am. All this, this validation of the societal definition of stuff, but none of that from those guys, and just hung out and had a good time. And man, we're just, and you couldn't get around the topic of beauty with them. Everything was through that lens. But you're one of those guys that's kind of like out of the scene. And there is so much, but I'm sure you've seen it. There's so much anger. There's so much hate that revolves around this whole thing of femininity and masculinity trying to connect, but instead we're living in this disconnect. What do you say to those people that, are women that are a little bit out of touch, or men who are a little bit out of touch with that and don't know what that beauty is?
Yeah. Both sides are blaming the other, and the men are saying that women are too controlling and too demanding, and the women are saying the men are too soft and too acquiescent, I guess you could say. So there is a disconnect today that I don't think we've ever had it like this before, and I think it's the culmination of our consumerist age, which we went from free love in the 60s to the 70s, which is like psychedelic, to the consumerist 80s and 90s, where we have it all. We have multiple choice, you can walk down any grocery store and you can see, as far as you can see, one type of, potato chips, for instance. You just can't choose.
Yeah.
So we have that same kind of short attention span, even in the things we read. Nobody really reads books anymore. We read articles on, little snippets on Facebook, and we have the same kind of short attention span in our relationships. And, it's like, it's a frenetic, twittering our lives in every respect. It's like small little pieces and snapshots of everything going everywhere all at once, and a lot of noise and very little signal.
Man, it's so interesting, because I've always thought that, we're so ruled by consumption. We're so ruled by looking through the filter of economics as to how we're supposed to have love, how we're supposed to connect, and how we're supposed to have emotions, but we're not in touch with what we were truly born to live as, whether that in any sort of way, just, I was really thinking about this the other night, and man, like I said, I got a ton of questions, more than anybody else. And I've interviewed a lot of people, and the feed that I actually sent out to say, hey, I'm going to interview Zan, was to about like 200 people. And I mean, I'm lucky if I get through 5% of the questions on this. Yeah, I mean, it's a lot, and they're actually pretty complex, and there's a lot of guys who are Amorati on that. And actually, perhaps we should talk about what that is.
Okay.
But, in this whole like consumer-based culture, man, if people just got past that, like that blame, that problem outside of themselves, what they're trying to control, and what I feel, man, just connected with somebody, had a conversation with a human being and got in touch with that moment, I think a lot of things would resolve themselves for you in that, because, I rarely have had the opportunity to talk to you, and it's an honor actually to interview you. But, man, that sort of moment where we have that human connection, whether that's with a woman or a man, what does that mean to you? That function of being social, that point where we have that empathy.
Well, I think we pursue the wrong things in my mind. I think, we've all heard of articles where they interview people on their deathbed, and they say, the thing I regret the most is that I work too much, or that I didn't spend time, or I didn't concentrate on my relationships, the people who loved me and the people I loved. And their only regret is that kind of waste that life in the pursuit of whatever, like, and I just do believe that the only thing we'll remember when we're really old is the girl that loved us and the girl that we loved, or the girls we've loved and the girls who took care of us and who cared if we were sick or sad, and we're going to remember those moments. And so, for me, to maximize those, I mean, the whole Ars Amorata message is a message of adventure, of curiosity, of casting off from the shore and letting go, like, and really letting go, and seeking adventure no matter what the cost, and standing on the earth as a man again. So it's a very solid, very affirming message for men, and it isn't a therapy. It's not like hand holding or babysitting or anything. And it's not sitting in the forest beating drums either. It's like we're, in a circle and hugging each other. It's like it's a strong sense of we're all, we're born nervous and confused and rejected by teachers and the kid down the street when we wanted to kick the ball with him, and they said, "Get out of here, you loser kid." So we grew up with this whole thing around, hanging over our heads. And this is a call to action, to say, hey, maybe we don't have it figured out. Maybe we are nervous to talk to girls, but boy, we're sure going to show up in this world, no matter what that takes. And so it's a good message, and a well-rounded one, and one that women say is good too. And it isn't the kind of message that women think that they want, which is a nice, sensitive guy who's giving them lots of massages. That's not what we're talking about at all. You're talking about a man who stands on the earth with his 2 feet and says, "This is how I will be a leader in this way, and I adore you, and I'm going this way, and I want you to come with me." And as opposed to following her around,
right,
like we do in this modern age, right?
Yeah, no, and I actually think that it's so interesting with the whole seduction scene and industry, the pickup scene. It's really, it's all about being alpha and being a leader and all this sort of stuff. But really, you're playing so much to the image of this BS cultural idea of what women and men are. It's just as subservient, or, it's so not alpha, ironically, rather than just really pursuing what you want. Rather than going with what's inside of you, you play to just these images and ideas and archetypes and all that sort of stuff. So sell everything that you own and hit the road. Where did that come from?
Well, this is me. Like, I'll tell you very quickly, because people have heard my story before. I grew up in northern Canada in the forest. Like, my formal education ended at 13 years old. And I was living in the forest with, no running water, electricity, this kind of thing, with moccasins on my feet and an axe in my hands, and running through the trees. And I literally had nothing. I remember living in a cabin by myself when I was 13, 14 years old, with grass on the roof, a tiny, small little, cabin, and a log cabin. And I would sit there, and all I had was a handmade bed with a comforter on it, and a little desk and a kerosene lamp. And I sat there and I would write in a journal when I was a kid, when I was those age. And the simplicity of that, I think, has never left me. My short stories, I ran away from that with no education. I somehow ingratiated myself into the corporate world, and I became very high placed in an international company. And I was in charge of the commodities for the company. I was in charge of the IT, because I'm a computer nerd. Self-taught. I learned all this myself. And I was very high placed in an international company at one point. But, I used to sit in the boardroom and look around at, the things we're tackling that day for 12 hours. And I would think, I'm only here for a paycheck. Just, that's the only reason I'm here, so I can have the illusion of a free life and fun on the weekend. And so I thought about it for many years. I was in the corporate world for a long time. But the real me, and the real authentic me, is that kid sneaking through the forest. That's me. And so I sold my apartment. I gave all my possessions away. Didn't sell any of that. I called up all my ex-girlfriends and said, "Come get whatever you want from my place." I gave it all away, and I reduced myself down to a carry-on bag and only that. And for the last 10 years, I've been basically a carry-on only, and I've lived all over the world and traveling the whole time. And I feel it's authentic to me. I'm not saying everybody should quit their job and go cast off and sail the world. But for me, that is my authenticity. I'm this kid sneaking through the forest with, thinking about, I don't know. And I feel like I've gone back to that, or I'm heading back to that simplicity of that. And it's more, it is who I am. It is the fundamental nature of who I am. So
when did women come into play for you? When did you start to notice that beauty and that desire?
Yeah. Well, this is interesting because I've always liked girls. I remember looking up skirts when I was crawling underneath the kitchen table when I was a little kid. I've always been that guy. But I always thought that I was going to live in the forest in a cabin with a rifle and run a trap line and be alone in the forest. I never,
Wow.
my teen years, that's all I wanted. And then it was about 18, 19 years old, I stuck my head out of that forest and I saw the first big city I ever saw was Vancouver. I lived way up north from Vancouver before this, in more in the wilderness. And I liked girls and I was drawn to the energy of girls, but because I had no social training, I guess you could say, and I was, kind of had the solitary, weird, non-normal going to school or university or college life, I didn't really understand. And so I came out of there and I would like girls and I would talk to girls completely nervous and shy and insecure and thinking there's no way they like me, but I would try and get up my nerve because I was delighted by them. But I was insecure and shy and needy, fundamentally needy. And so I spent my early years from 19 years old to into my 20s extremely insecure and needy and crying over girls who I thought were the one. So yeah, I've always liked girls and I've been banging my head trying to figure it out all these years.
So when did it all switch to you being the guy that I mean, right now you travel the world, but you have, what is it? Casa Amorata in Bucharest. And, you have this amazing lifestyle. You used to have a place in Austin. I remember whenever I'd run into you, I do not know if those women are still in your life or whatever, but I would always tell people, I was like, look, the most organically beautiful women I've ever seen around one man that were just cool, like great women. Yeah. I mean, you would always be talking to a woman and like never talking to the like I'd be a guy. So, but they would be, they were just such rich women in life, philosophy, everything about them. When did that switch? Like, when did you become that guy that, you went from a guy who was nervous and insecure about women in your 20s to somebody that was able to communicate fluidly, honestly, and have many women around you in your life, living with you, traveling with you. Yeah,
it's true. And, but like people say, what was that epiphany or what did you read or what was that moment? And I tell you, I swear it's been incremental. It's been, there's never a point to look back and say, aha, that's when I started to understand or to really get it. And I'll tell you this, I've been teaching and lecturing and doing these seminars and writing for years and years about this kind of stuff. And that's the only subject I talk about is women and beauty and the concept of our relationship with women. And yet it's only been in the last couple of years, I'm thinking, that I just kind of sat back and took a look around and said, gee, like I have such a for the first time I felt I have such a wealth of experience. That is it's quite unique. I mean, I've done nothing but talk to women and spend time in the energy of women. I've gone out to nightclubs 4 nights a week by myself in all my 20s and 30s. Like I've dated girls. I've all stripes, and so it's just recently I'm realizing, boy, like maybe because I'm getting older, I'm starting to think, there is some kind of wisdom that I've accumulated, which kind of shocks me because I've always been feel all these years I'm thinking I'm just this guy like everybody else and trying to figure it out too, and I still feel that I don't know. I still feel like I don't know anything compared to like the total knowledge out there, but I feel like, wow, I like in almost any circumstance I have something to say because I've seen it before, not because I've gained a lot of. Not because I've constructed a lot of stuff, but I've just seen that experience before. I've seen that situation before. I've seen a girl like that one before, and the thing she's about to say. And so it's strange. I've sat back a little bit and said, well, wait a minute. Like I do have a sense that I now have something to share. Can you imagine that? now only in the last year or so,
Wow.
where I feel I really do have something that really powerful to share, and I didn't before.
And
There's
also,
always a guy I figured out.
you've also said before that you have no teachers throughout your life.
Yeah.
That you've never had one mentor to look towards. What guided you through this?
Phew. You know, if I can talk to a 23-year-old guy now and tell him the things that I've learned and share some of the things, I wish I would have had that message when I was that age. And instead, I spent all these years trying, failing, trying, sort of succeeding, trying to figure it out. And I just stayed in it. I stayed in the trenches. What guided me, honestly, is and believe me, I've seen some really not nice women in my life. Okay, there's some women out there that are just like there's not nice men. There's some women that are very petty, and I've seen that. But it's never made me defensive against women or angry at women. And I've seen the fundamental volumes of rejection as much as any guy. Believe me, I've seen it. And yet I always had this underlying belief that there's some kind of grace in women that needs to be elicited, and a guy with the right kind of strength and standing in a certain way can bring that out of her. And so I think honestly my guide has been, I've been saying for years that my only mentor, my only teacher has been women. I've sat at the knee of women, asked them a million questions. But realistically, it's the essence of women that has taught me something, I think. Not specific women so much. Well, yeah, no, specific women taught me very specific things, which is fantastic. Brighter women than I am. But it's sitting and listening to the essence of feminine nature and what it creates in the heart of a man, a warrior, and how necessary it is for that man to be a warrior. He needs the feminine inspiration and grace to be that guy.
Now, this actually brings us to a question that one of an Amorati actually told me to ask you, and he said, "Hey,
Okay.
you know, I have, and this guy, amazing individual. You know, I know him very well. In his 50s, his whole life has been with women. He speaks your language too. I mean, it's like it's pretty amazing." But he said, "So what do you have to say? What brings us back to that beauty? What brings us back to that pursuit, that hope, that the desire to be with women after we've been run down? Whether we've had, and this could be for many different men, but as he was bringing up to me, he's like, what about the times where you've been, you know, attacked or had the restraining orders, or you lose all your money, or, you know, they just send your life into the gutter. What brings us back to that hope? What brings us back to that beauty and that need to connect with women in that way?"
You know, I think I'll tell you what it is. It is the rare woman that every guy can remember encountering. Every guy has had some woman in his life that he looked at and said, wow, what a beauty she is. What a life-giving energy she is. And we know this. I'm convinced that most of your listeners have experienced or will experience that in their life, where they run into a woman that, you know, we've got this business transaction relationship-y thing where we're saying, okay, what are you gonna do for me? Where are we gonna be in 5 years? And what does this mean to you? And are you looking at that girl? And why are you looking at that girl? And you should be looking at me, and all this kind of like tension. And there's the rare women out there who all they do is give. They give and give and give, and their sole desire is that you, in their presence, feel taken care of and nurtured. And when you have that, when you discover that, it breaks your heart. It breaks the heart of a man, because he's so rare, especially in the West. It's so rare. When you discover a woman like that, it makes you turn your eyes to her and say, wow, this is something I haven't encountered or encountered very rarely. And so for me, it's the feminine, it's the feminine grace that pokes through all the darkness. And it's rare when you encounter it, but I've seen enough of it. I wrote an entire book about it. And it's rare enough, just like it's rare that men are truly masculine and standing on the earth with all the charm and respect and non-controlling, but still have the strength of what we used to have. So there's a hope in there, because there's a call back to beauty. And I think, I mean, my whole book is I mean, there's 9 chapters in it. The first chapter is called The Way of Beauty. And then it goes into seduction, the way of the natural, the way of women, the way of relationship, the way of men, the way of love. And the last chapter is called the same thing as the first one, the way of beauty. So the bookends of that book is because we're seeking beauty, we're seeking relevance in our lives. That's why we do anything. So we're trying to understand, we want, anything. Like we want relevance and to sit in the essence of beauty is everyone's heart's desire. So I think, and the earth is very much missing it. And I think feminine grace is what we're missing. The earth has and I can keep talking about this, but the earth has a heavy masculine energy around it right now, like with the wars and catastrophes and the trouble. And women have this
humans' interaction on earth.
Yeah.
Like the culture. Yeah.
And it's a heavy culture, and it's an antagonistic culture and a misogynistic culture and a mistrustful, where dating is like 80%, where I think I like this guy, but I'm not sure. And my girlfriends don't really like him. Right. So I can't give myself fully there because my girlfriend say, he's, and so it's, we have this ennui, I guess you could say, and this distemper, I guess.
Yeah.
But I do believe that there are some women on this earth and there's some men on this earth that are, here you go. They're going to call forth and do the damnedest to change it. That's what I do believe.
Yeah. So Is a man, do you think that any man can achieve this, or is it just a select few?
I think, I'll tell you this, Steve, I think any man can achieve it. But as they say, many are called, few are chosen.
Right.
Any man can, but very few will step up. And everybody nods their head and says, I bought the self-help book and I bought another one and I took a seminar and I've got the answer right there on my shelf. I paid $29.95 for the answer. It's right there. So I did my part. But it's going to take strong men that say, no more. I don't want any of this. No more of this self-help nonsense, and let's go stand on the earth and like in all our insecurities and all our brokenness and go stand forth. And any man can, but very few will. That's the truth.
So what is the difference between this misogyny and flirting or playing or being the kid that's looking up women's skirts, being the man that wants to feel a woman in every way that, his sexual urges, being desires? What is the difference between that natural calling, that natural state, and this misogynistic mindset?
I'll tell you this, and it's a difficult concept, but everybody understands it as soon as I say it, is this. The men who really have women who adore them, there's a type of man we know that the women say, oh, it's just him. He can get away with anything. He's like automatically, the women say he's included in our side. You guys have to date us, and you have to buy us drinks and stuff like that. This guy, he's already included on our side, right? We know this.
Yeah.
And what those guys have is the only thing I've ever been trying to write about, describe. The whole Ars Amorata is about trying to describe that kind of man, as opposed to say some guy who's trying to get phone numbers and that kind of stuff. What is the essence of these men? We say confidence, we say charisma, we say all these things, but what is that? And I to say it short, I think the men who women absolutely adore, who get away with everything, who have women in their lives, who women love to the day they die, have two qualities, which answers what you just asked me. They have two qualities. Number one, they're a father figure leader who stand on the earth and say, here's my boundaries, here's who I am, and this is how I want it to be, in a full, good, strong, respectful way, as opposed to ultimatum better like this. They have this strong leadership quality, and they tell women, they call women on their bullshit, and they say, thus shall you go and no further. This is how I want it to be, in full invitation and welcome. At the same time, that guy is a little boy who needs washing behind his ears, and his shirt collar is not adjusted just right. And hey, my shirt collar is not adjusted just right. But it's right. He has both qualities where he shows up in the lives of women as a father figure who's a leader, and also a little boy who needs to be taken care of. And these guys who are kind of misogynist and strong and ultra confident and these kinds of things never give a woman the ability to bring out their feminine spirit, which is a life-giving, taking care of spirit. They're out there confident in the battlefield, and they're confident in the tent, as opposed to relaxing and being quiet in the quiet mode. And it's hard to describe in a very short thing, but those two qualities is what sets apart men who have women in lives. I mean, women who adore them and say beautiful things about them for the rest of their days. Whoever they marry, they say, well, that guy was one of the guys that touched my heart, because they have this strong quality that they will not compromise. And at the same time, they're a little boy who doesn't know how to take care of himself. And a man has...
Go ahead.
Sorry, I was just going to say, Steve, because imagine this. That appeals to both sides of the dichotomy of woman, which is Madonna whore. So you see?
Yeah.
Which is the complex of women. I was in an art gallery in Belgium one time, and this woman had these paintings, and they were diptychs. So they were black and white. They're all women, but it was black and white, or red at the top and white at the bottom, and all these different halves, and violent and then innocent on different halves of these paintings. And I said, what does this represent? She said, this represents me as a woman. And I remember her saying to me, she says, men want women to be either a slut and dirty, or this perfect mother companion. She said, but I am both, and every woman is both. And so a man that has both those qualities appeals to both sides of women. Yeah. And usually a woman gets a guy who's a bad guy, who's a lover, who comes into riding into town and rides off in the sunset, but they can't get him to commit, settle down. Or they get a guy who's a good companion, good for, he eats popcorn and watches movies and massages her lots, and he's a good father and a good husband, but there's no sense of ravishing in him. So they get one or the other, and this is the cry of woman. This is the longing of woman. So the whole idea is to what is the quality of men who are both at the same time?
Yeah, I always think, men and women are just in this like starved, repressed state of their masculinity, their femininity, and we forgot how to follow our urge, or even think that it's okay, to even have that urge. And so now it's a checklist. Now it is that commodification. Now it is that weighing of scales. It isn't falling into yourself. It's trying to define yourself by all this little stuff around you in a constant stream of, as you said, tweets or whatever stuff out there. I'm actually going to get into some questions here that some people asked you. When is it, you being a man of relationships and beauty and connecting with women, in many women, what is it that allows you to know it's time to go? It's time to end this relationship. It's time to move on.
That's a good question. Sometimes we're floating in a boat and the water's deep and the boat is comfortable, and we kind of like are hanging off the side, and we're waiting for another boat to come along. But until another boat comes along, we hang on to this one. In other words, we stay in this relationship. How many women are in relationship thinking, is he, and asking, are you ever going to marry me? I'm getting older and I have this desire. I want to get married and have children. And the guy is saying, well, I don't know, someday, whatever. When truthfully, he knows that's never going to happen. He knows he's never going to marry her. And so when it breaks up eventually after 4 years, and she says, I wasted 4 years of my life and I was misled. And so, this whole thing is like, how do we be in a relationship and be truthful to ourselves no matter what the cost, no matter what we're about to lose? And we're so afraid to lose that girl that we can't bring ourselves to say, it's not going to last forever, but you're a good cook and I like sleeping at your place and you're good in bed. And so I'm going to keep this going, keeping the illusion going. And so, I guess the answer to the question is always be speaking the truth of who you are, no matter what you think you're going to lose.
So really at any cost.
At any cost.
The true, I don't know if you would call it way, or, the highest level or the greatest expression is to fully express and not limit by the world around you. And geez, man, what a tough freaking thing. How many times have love in the beauty that just, when I first interacted and I guess saw beauty in sex, I could not let go of it. And then, I thought it was everything else. I thought it was like all this stuff of like, all the pickup stuff, right? We're
Mm-hmm.
gonna do this and yada yada yada, and it's gonna be this big thing, and this kind of like novelty idea of it. But there was always that moment, where you would see, and I actually talk about this with my buddy Jim, who's an Amorati, a long-term guy with you. But a woman's face when she
Yeah.
orgasms, when she's with you, or even if she's even if you're in
Yeah.
rapport, if you're in this emotional web with her, is so different than the face that you saw when you just socially met her, when you superficially
Right.
met her. She could be, as Jim always says, she could be a stack of bricks, but when you're connected with her, it's
Yeah.
this beauty on a different level. Man, once I got a taste of that, that was like, I had to have it, which made it so hard to walk away,
Right.
or, I relied on drama to break up the relationships or anything
Right.
like that. Uh, are you somebody that in time, with all your experiences, been able to, easily, or I guess more easily, walk away from that beauty
Well,
and be alone at times?
yeah, like Casanova had this same thing that I have, where he would go to Warsaw, or he would go to, London, and he'd meet a girl, an actress or something like that, and he would basically start to, put her in a house and see her every day for 3 months. But when the time for him to go, which always did, because the wind would call his name, he would be so torn, because he didn't want to hurt that heart who loved him. He knew he had to go, because the call of the open road was stronger than the call of staying with her. And he was so sad and torn, because he wanted her to be happy, because he cared about her. He wasn't just a cad that, rode into town and like, okay, I'll stay with this girl for a few months and then see ya, I'm out of here. He really cared about her, so he would do his damnedest to find her uh, a boyfriend, find her another guy that, to take his place, or find her a theater engagement. She was usually an actress. He'd find her something so that she was okay, and only when she was okay could he bear to leave. And I completely understand that, because you think about the women who you've had in your past that are not with you anymore, and all I want is that they are happy and with a good guy, that they're feeling that, So, but I tell you, it is. And and I'm in a relationship now. I have this my girlfriend. I've been with her almost 3 years now, and we live together. I mean, we travel the world together, and she's by my side constantly. When she goes to visit her parents for Tuesdays, I'm like, I'm completely lost. But it isn't because I set out to have a girlfriend. And for the 8-9 years before that, I didn't have a girlfriend. I had girls,
Right.
and I had and I had great relationships with absolutely fundamentally beautiful girls, but they just were not the girl for me, without analyzing that or trying to construct that. And so it's I don't know. It's like I've always I always speak my truth, no matter what the cost. No matter what the cost.
Man, that's interesting. That and that's something
Yeah.
that you said there's no turning point or this epiphany or whatever that had happened. But man, what a trait to develop. I mean, God, I cannot. I mean, I try and live by that trait, and I screw it up. I'm lucky if I get a little bit of that
Yeah.
true, authentic. This is who I am. This is how I'm articulating myself. Man, hats
Well,
off to you.
I tell you, Steve, because I was not that guy.
Mhm.
Yeah, like in my 20s, I was like, uh, I learned how to manipulate a situation the way I wanted it to be.
Right.
I spent years trying to be this seducer guy. I mean, like that's what my whole thing is. Like I can talk women into bed. I know how to weave a web of words that is impossible for women to resist. Blah 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 blah, and right. And I'm good at it. I can talk to women, and they go, "Huh?" I can short circuit her brain with words. I've done that my whole life, and this last period of my life, the last years of my life, is to strip all that away and say, the greatest seduction is just to speak truth and let it land. We hit the ball in her court. We ask nothing in return, but speak great desire, and not trying to adjust things by the way I say things, or and so I speak very plain these days. And so you say how it's an amazing thing to go from that insecure guy to the guy who just speaks truth. It's been my journey of trying to find out what is the authentic guy who I am, and what is it that I want, and then just express that to the world, express that to women, and let the chips fall where they may. And And what you learn is that is the essence of true seduction. To just speak it. This is what I want. This is how I want it to be.
Yeah. Man, I totally agree with you because
Yeah.
seduction, I think the feminine side to seduction, I think true seduction is not neither masculine nor feminine. It's when it unites and becomes a new thing. But the true feminine trait is that choice. And so as a man, you put something out there, whatever that is, in any form. But the most beautiful thing is when she actually chooses to give herself to you. That's when the fulfillment comes. And like I said, it could be with emotion or it could be with actual physical, it could be sexual. But that's where the energy really transforms into this awesome experience. So
exactly. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, hey, I want you to talk, man.
I was just going to say that answers the previous question, where the guy said, how do we still maintain our when we've seen such drama and bitterness and dysfunction, how do we still maintain it? Because what you just said, which is there are those moments in time. You said it, when you see a woman's face, which is an orgasm, which is a different face.
Yeah.
This is something that you created with in her mind.
Yeah.
Like it's something that like we think, okay, well, this woman did that. No, this is something that you co-created with her. You co-created that face.
Yeah.
You co-created that. And it takes a man of strength and of giving empathy and to have that, for women to blossom into that. So the whole point of this is everything is ugly out there. There's ugliness in our reality shows, and it's all temporary, and it's kitsch, and there's no beauty in our architects or anything anymore until we set forth to elicit it from the world. And to create it, no, not create it, uncover it where it is.
Right.
So women are jaded. Women have had dating trouble all their lives. They look at you, okay, I'm suspicious of you, Steve, because I was betrayed, I was abandoned, I was abused in my childhood. How are you going to treat me? And to step forward and say, let's have a different agreement, you and I, and say it, not just like try and prove I'm a good guy,
right,
but to say it. I want to have a different experience with you, and this is my promise to you. I will never mislead, and I'll tell you exactly what I want. And so to step forward like that, women are waiting for that, and it uncovers again that little girl beauty she used to have when she was running through the fields. And so it's the whole point of everything we're trying to do is to find those moments by uncovering it, and it is our job as a man to seek it out and call it forth from women. With our words, say, this is how I want it to be. I want show up in your feminine grace, because that's how I'm going to see you, as opposed to trying to manipulate it and adjust it. And you see?
Yeah. So that being said, when you uncover that side of the woman, the trust, the woman who has had abuse or trauma or something that is keeping her blocked, when you uncover that little girl, that side of her that may not have come out, in 10, 15 years, what do you see? Because it's a different thing. A little girl does not have a sexual urge, a sexual draw, but that a woman, when you let that out of her, what's the difference that happens?
But see, she still has the spirit of adventure and running through the field and picking flowers.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
And it's cliche and it's whatever. But I tell you, women don't believe in that dream anymore. They used to believe in the prince that they were going to marry and on a white horse and sweep them off their feet in a castle. They used to dream of these things. They used to play with their Barbies and dream about those types of things. And then they meet men, the men of modern society, who are a bunch of little boys who were trying to like pick them up and trying to get them in bed and trying to, and high five their buddies. And yeah, she was easy. So they lose hope. They protect themselves. They're guarded. They're jaded. Their girlfriends surround them and corral them, and make sure that no one's getting into our circle. And when a man shows up and says with his words, let's do something different than that. I know you've seen these things in the past, but I'm going to see you as a true beauty. And I'm going to look at you with my eyes, and you're going to listen to my voice, and the vibration of my voice is going to say, every time I see you again, I may never see you again ever, but if I do, I'm going to see you as a true beauty. So I want you to show up as a true beauty every time you see me. With other guys, I don't care what you do. You do it, be jealous of them or upset at them or angry at them or betrayed by them. But I will never do that in this circle here. And when a man steps forth and says it with that kind of authority, women will trust him the rest of their days until he proves something different. So I think fundamentally that's what we're saying. Like you said it. You said and I get a sense from what you told me just now, Steve, that the woman that makes you stop, and I think most of the listeners out there, is a woman that says, I'm going to give you my trust. I'm going to give you of myself. Please don't trample on it. I'm going to open myself up to you. And when a woman does that, now that's a profound thing that she does. She's saying, I'm going to open my heart up to you. I'm going to open up my ways. I'm going to open my body to you. And it's a profound thing. And a lot of guys say, I got in there, easy. Right? High five, buddies. But it's those moments when a woman does that, where you see the true beauty of her, that you say, wow, there's something strong in this world. And I'm only going to seek out those moments until the day I die. That's all I'm going to seek out, is those moments. It might be with one woman the rest of your life. That's okay. You're still seeking out those moments with that.
Right.
You're still seducing that woman all the days of your life and looking for your beauty in her every day.
What I think is interesting is so many women will open up themselves, sexually, emotionally, but holding back something of, their mentality or certain emotions or certain parts of their sexuality that they keep, from other people, because they don't feel comfortable. And men, of course, too. And that is one of the big tragedies that, when I think about the bad relationships or the relationships that I had that ended poorly, that, may have had, that all of them had beautiful, beautiful moments within them. It all came down to that, because we did not connect on a complete level.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so sad, when I talk to women, now just conversationally about whatever, it's almost impossible for me not to talk about sex. The level of sexual frustration, the level of not knowing what it is, I'll ask women, and I hate this because it's almost like a routine, but I just ask it because I want to get to know them. I mean, I don't know them if I don't see this side, but I'll say, well, okay, when was the last time you were kissed and felt like a complete woman? When was the last time you were touched or talked to by anybody, even a friend, and knew that you were the woman that you knew you were when you were a little girl, or that you feel is deserving of all this stuff. And they sit there and look at me with like blank eyes. And I'm just like, man, that is so sad, because you're attractive. I mean, to some may be like really, really attractive to everybody, or, by society standards, and some may be attractive in a very unique way. But to somebody, you're beautiful and you are not feeling that beauty. And that is such a sad contradiction and a representation of the culture that we live in,
Yeah, and what a thing to say to women.
Yeah.
What a thing to say to women, as opposed to, do you live around here and how long did you go to university, right? What a thing to say to women, to talk on a different level and say, wow, there's something beautiful about you, and I don't know what it is. You're intriguing, and I don't know what it is.
Yeah.
And every guy's complimenting your hair, and every guy's complimenting your eyes, but there's something else. What is it?
Yeah.
This is the true essence of who you are.
Yes. So, and that's what I want to know. I mean, that's who I want to talk to. But every man's different.
Exactly.
Too, he may want different things. Okay. There's a question here that says, you have a motto of ease and delight.
Yeah.
Now, what happens when you're not feeling that? When you're nervous, you've had lack of sleep, you're having a bad day, like it's not so ease and delight. How do you present yourself out to the world?
Well, it's like, we think that guys think that they're going to wake up one day and they're going to have some inner peace. They're going to reach some kind of state of grace where they're always in a good mood and they're always in state, right? The thing that we say is we're going to get in state and we're going to have this confidence and an easy way of moving through life. And that's not the way it goes. The way it goes is we're always going to have to stay connected to that part of us. Stay connected to the part of us that others comment on and say, you know what, you're very much this. Say, wow. And instead we say, well, no, you just don't know the real me. But the way people compliment us and the comments they say about us, you're so generous, or you're always so giving. We say, it's just, and stay connected to those part of us and realize that those are the moments, and that's the way others people see us. So it's always, you're never going to wake up in the morning and go, okay, I have it figured out. Never, never, never. You're always going to wake up and scratching your head and scratching your belly and wandering around the room. Okay, I'm completely lost today, and I feel confused. And I talked to a girl last night. It didn't work out so well. And yet, the concept of ease and delight is to say that as long as you're taking one step forward and you're always on that journey forward, you can forgive yourself everything. You can forgive yourself everything, and not be too hard on yourself, and say, you know, at least I'm doing my best to step forward with all the light that I've been given. I'm moving forward in the light that I've been given, and so that concept of ease and delight is to say you're always going to have to recover. So you'll feel upset about something, or a girl say something not nice to you, or you're going to have a bad day, or something goes wrong at work, or your boss yells at you, and all you can do, those things are always going to happen. All you can do is recover. Your whole life is going to be is going to be one long session of recovery, recover back to that state of grace, recover by consciously saying, okay, using the life is what it is, and consciously recovering, and it's going to have to do it. You're going to have to do it all day long for the rest of your life. You're never going to be jumping into this mode, and anybody who's confident or easy has an easy grace about them is because they're consciously choosing to say, okay, and I'm going to step back and look at myself. I'm confused right now, or I'm nervous and my hands are sweaty, and that's okay. I'm going to observe myself.
So how is it that you actually go back to that? I mean, how do you take time for yourself personally?
Well, I've been saying for years, if you would just spend time with yourself every day, and when you wake up in the morning, for instance, sit on the end of your bed for 15 minutes and just contemplate and ask yourself, who am I and what do I want? Who am I and what do I want? If a guy would take those 15 minutes, I mean, we'll spend 30 minutes watching a sitcom because, and flicking through the channels like this, because we can't be doing nothing. We've been taught since a young age, you can't be doing nothing. You have to be productive. You have to be doing something, always filling your time with karate lessons or filling all your evenings. And then we rush through our days and nights. But if a man would just pause and take time every day to be still and just sit in the energy of himself and say, who am I and what do I want? Without trying to answer the question, just asking the question, who am I and what do I want? How does that feel? If we would pause every day and be still, you reset yourself like a checkpoint in a video game. And you can go back to that and say, well, here I am, this is what I wanted. And it moves you forward in a sense of awareness and openness and readiness for opportunities that come your way. As opposed to rush. I got all these emails I got to do, and I've got this to-do list, and I've got to install this other productivity app. Maybe that'll make me more productive. Right? How many people have like 10 productivity apps on their phone, right?
Man.
So and you try them all, and nothing makes you more productive. So instead of saying I have to be more productive, instead of saying that, say I have to scale it back and say, who am I in calmness of who I am and what do I want? That's where everything flows. I read an article recently that it is in boredom. When we have nothing to do, we're stuck, and we're boredom, that you start thinking about the greater questions about our place in the universe, for instance. And when you're like rush, you don't think these big questions anymore, or these big thoughts anymore.
Yeah, I actually think our natural state, I mean, God, if you look at it, if I try and see sex as the truth, right? That's where I see the absolutes of what we really are. Whereas if we're kind of like looking at society and trying to determine sex, we come up with all this stupid stuff about social value and, I don't know, we miss the human to human connection from it. But man, I really think that how we were born to be was very simple, very, very simple.
That's for sure.
God, we were not meant to be inundated with all this stimuli, and it's such an interesting thing. For this podcast, it's different, but I'm the host of the 21 Conventions podcast, which has like a good mix of dating people, diet people, health, fitness, mentality. There's a lot of people who are into the whole life hacking thing, which it's so bizarre to me because you're taking this idea of, paleo lifestyle, of eating how we were evolved to eat and sleeping how we were evolved to sleep and all this stuff.
Yeah.
But then we're doing it so we can be the most efficient in this culture, which is just so far. We were not meant to be working this much. And yeah, actually, there was a guy who gave a speech on this that had a lot to do with
It's great.
the anthropology of people. And it was like, man, we talked to people for like an hour and a half a day and sat, for like 90%, like we were stagnant for 90% of our activity. And I just thought that's so interesting because how our brains were formed, how our emotions were formed. And of course we can do all this awesome stuff. And clearly we're not going to go backwards, but the standard of what we need to be going for, to get our emotions in, full order, our mentality, our urge for sex is so much less than what we think. And because of that, we're looking at this exaggerated culture to fulfill it. It's just incredible. So crazy. Yeah.
I completely agree with that.
Yeah.
It's like we have this concept of productivity. We have to be productive, always produce, as opposed to, the whole idea of Ars Amorata is to create a place on earth where we can gather and, sit around the virtual fire and tell the stories of the day. And we're storytelling. We forgot how to be storytellers. Yeah. And how to just sit in the energy of each other and do nothing but that.
Man, what is the I guess like greatest, I want to say artist who influenced you? And of course there's probably many, but what was the last great artist or work of art that moved you?
The thing that I'm a history buff. Mm-hmm. And I love the concept of history. And I think it's because I was born and raised in Northern Canada with no connection to the past at all. I mean, the only thing I saw that any kind of history was mountains and trees. And when I come to Europe and spend time in Europe and I see 1,000-year-old church, for instance, to me, like I can sit and look at that church for hours, just look at it, because I feel like I'm connecting to human history and all, the people that went before. And that's going to be us in the future, that no one's going to remember what you and I talked about here.
Right.
And that thought is profound to me. If I see like these antique, photos of a woman, a semi-nude woman from 1890 in Paris, and she's smiling, looking like this, I could stare at that for hours and think, that woman is long gone. And everything she could do, she could play the piano, she could sing, she had ambitions to go to New York, whatever it was.
Right.
Gone from the earth. And that's no different than us. And I look at that and think that is us, that's our future. And so to maximize our experience on this earth, and to maximize the memories and the stories on this earth, and to gather around the virtual fire, and to maximize the greatness of the relationships that we're in, and seek nothing else, to me is like, it's my learning, it's my becoming, it's what I'm trying to understand for myself, as opposed to, getting out of the forest and then going down the rat race and getting a fancier car and a $5,000 couch and, fancy paintings on my wall and all these things, which I had, and chasing it, nothing was ever good enough. It was like, you're always trying to find something better. And for me to cast it aside and say, wait, I want the forest again, and I want to sit in the energy of those girls from 1890 that are semi-nude, and they're looking at you from the black and white photo, and you think, wow, look how beautiful and young she is there, and it's all gone. So to sit in that and realize that, boy, well, I mean, like, I could talk for hours about stuff like this, but
sure, totally. I mean, hey, look, the expression of the artist, the expression of the artist that captured that moment, and the woman who posed for it, man, it is a voice that you can get a little bit of. When I used to work a lot in the arts, worked in theater extensively. Okay. And so I would always think, man, I'd always be thinking when we'd be going through a play, whether it was an 8-week or 12-week rehearsal process, or sometimes only 3 weeks, it didn't matter what I had done. I realized that the audience would only get 1/10 of what everybody's contribution would be at most. So what the writer thought, I mean, the explosion of imagination that the writer must have had. A lot of times I worked as a professional light designer, which is, very, very it's technical, but it's very internal and paced, and just very slow, very seductive, very slow paced. I didn't think of it that way at the time, right? At the time I was just, I was just doing this very interpretive job, and also stage acting or whatever. But in that time, I would be like, what I'm feeling now, or if I were on stage, what I'm projecting now, the audience can only get at my highest point, where I really thought that I was communicating to some source that was greater than me and not even me. They could only get a small portion of that. But when you look at art, or when you look at architecture, I mean, Jesus, I am not religious, but when you see those churches, like, this is an act of God. This is why people believe in God. This is like so awesome. Man, that is what allowed me to build a metaphor in my mind to seduction.
That's
that
incredible.
Expression, that one expression that I could have, that we felt. And actually, this guy, Jason Savage, got done traveling through Europe with you. I picked him up from the airport, and I think he went off and did whatever savage, crazy shit. That's him. He emailed me and he's like, man, like, I just want to go and fuck a bunch of chicks. And he was like, forget this. But I picked him up from the airport, and he said, man, Steve, you've always been, this was in 2010. He's like, you've always been critical about pickup, but pickup destroys people. Like, it makes people worse. And you just had this long rant. And then, of course, his car's broken down. So we go and fix his car, and we're working on that. This guy lived out of a van, true vagabond,
Yeah, I remember,
I remember him telling me, he's like, I was sitting with a woman. I think he was talking about having sex, but he was like, it was at the point where I was her and she was me. The noises that she made were me. Like, purely, I didn't, will them or whatever, but we were in this unison. And I was like, man, that is it. That's that thing that you can only get in that moment of heightened thought. And so, when I would just trip out on art and I would go crazy as an artist, I mean, I was nuts and angry and pissed off like any guy in his early 20s, right? But to me, that was like the religion. I have no religion. I don't know what God is, but there is something far more than me that I can tap into at times. And the next time I saw it later on in my life was in the presence of women, in the presence of sex and connection. Beautiful, amazing thing.
So, go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead. I don't know where I'm going with that. So
this is incredible, because what else is there to try and understand or to seek? This is the whole point. If we're not seeking, you just talked about beauty this whole time. Mm-hmm. If we're not seeking beauty and what it makes us feel, and the evocation of that, if we're not seeking our art, then we're just going through the motions, and we're doing routine, and we're having a job, and we're getting a raise, and we're getting another job, and changing our careers, and we're getting cancer and dying. Yeah. And so what's the point of it? And that's incredible. And as an aside, my girlfriend Diana, he's a lighting designer, because that's what she does right now.
Oh yeah, 26 plays, man.
My girlfriend is a lighting designer right now. She designs all the lightings at the major theater here in Bucharest. So,
amazing, really, wow.
God. So and I don't know that world, but she comes home every day and she tells me she's created this and she did this, and
for me, light design. So there's different types of light designers, and I would imagine your girlfriend is much more on this internal side, which I relate with, which is rare in the higher levels. It's found a lot, but man, you have 2 hours or however long the play is, right?
Yeah.
To pace, to almost subconsciously through painting the stage with light. In a drama, for me, much better to light than like a musical, because a musical is just flashy, a lot of cues, and
jumping around,
fun. But I never liked them.
That's cool.
But man, if you had a slow paced play, you had the opportunity to sync up with the script and get that 10%, that little sliver of whatever that artist was tapping into, that writer and the director and whoever else in their vision was
and
tapping
bring your
into
own art to it.
Oh man, it's amazing because nobody notices it. That's the beauty of light design. I think true spirituality is in anonymity. Maybe I should talk to her. but is
26 plays, Diana. He did 26 plays, and he's talking about the beauty of the art of creating the light and interpreting And she talks to me about it every day. This is cool because it's a world I don't know about.
It's
This is very cool.
beautiful. But it's the same. So some artists are good at some things, some aren't good at others. But light design, I was never a technical guy. Almost, it was very hard for me to get, but I was capable of getting it. But man,
And others did that. You had the vision of it.
yeah, yeah. And what I
That's
relate
her.
with, yeah, cinematographers are like that. But God, some of those guys are so skilled. I'm very, man, it's going to sound really, I thought of what I did is such a passionate piece of art that I did not agree with anybody else. And so when I'm humbled by people, it's really impressive because I tend to think people don't take it as seriously as me. I haven't done it for over 10 years now, but
Yeah.
but back then that's how I thought, man. But when I worked with some cinematographers that were, God, they just blew me away. I could not believe how careful they were, and totally different thing, looking at a smaller frame. But if you have a whole stage that doesn't move,
Yeah.
and you get to move that, and you work with a great set designer and, actors, and you can pace it, you can feel it, man. You can feel it move. And there's cues that are happening that are, 30 seconds long that nobody's noticing, or 2 minutes long. And it shapes the feeling of it.
That's cool.
It's great. I mean, when you were talking about architecture, art, I always think about like when I saw Beethoven's Seventh Symphony and Ninth Symphony live, I was like, Jesus Christ, this guy wrote this stuff hundreds of years ago, and yet we get to feel it. And he couldn't even hear for the Ninth Symphony. I mean, he could, God,
Can only feel the vibration. Yeah,
just amazing. But
that's great, man. It's great.
That's
exactly what we're talking about.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, and even when it comes to the Amorata, it is like, whenever I talk to any of those guys, whether it's Zhao or Jordan or Canute or whoever, it's just the search for life and the search for truth comes in organic human interactions. It's a side tangent, but you may like this. But like with Jewish art, with Muslim art, they make it symmetrical. Like the Star of David is symmetrical because it's man-made, and we don't want to try and say we are like a God. So they intentionally, in some forms of art or whatever. That's what I heard. I'm not Jewish or Muslim, but yeah, you see these tapestries.
So it's it's not asynchronous, like
So
nature.
Yeah, exactly. And but what I heard and what I choose to believe is true, and I've talked to some people about this, and they agree and some disagree. But I always heard that about Muslim art, is that it had that, and I thought that was such a great, humble, way to think about it. Or with Orthodox Jews, they would say that they did not create art; they were artisans. Gosh, man, I forget his name, but Yitzhak Perlman or something. Anyway, he was a violinist, or Leonard Bernstein. He was a conductor. He did compose, but so much was about being a part of the art rather than being the art. We are not God. We are in the grace of God. But
that's interesting.
I think where we do tap into that is stuff like sex, is stuff like talking to people, having a real moment with somebody. And you actually talk about it. Totally going to paraphrase and screw this up, but it was like, if you have not sat on a beach with a woman, under the moonlight, some Zan sort of thing, right?
Yeah.
If you've not had that moment, then you need to live.
You need to go find it.
Yeah, you need to go. Yeah. God,
you have to go find it, otherwise you'll die. You might live for a long time, but you will die.
Man,
and
when did you know that you had come that close to death then?
Well, I had that corporate job, and I used to sit there, and they were grooming. It was an international company, Japanese owned, and they told me, we're grooming you to be the next president. So shadow the president. Your office is next to the president, and learn the ways and means of this company, because you'll be the next president. And I used to talk to the president and say, you have this big house and these cars and this swimming pool, and do you ever get tired of it? And he'd say, well, I said, what do you and your wife do for fun on the weekend? Watch TV. And I thought, wow, man, not for me. I have to go escape back into the wilderness and sneak through the birch trees again, and you can't. I don't look back. And it's the greatest thing I've ever done. And
Yeah.
it's the seeking of art, it's seeking of beauty and seeking of relevance in our life.
What a different life you have. I mean, it's just
Wow.
so crazy. You're in Bucharest. In what caused you? Are you settled down in one place now, or?
Yeah, like what happened was I've been, like, as you know, I've been traveling for 10 years, and Hans joined me 5 years ago. And we lived in Austin for a few months. We lived in Montreal for a few months. We lived in Panama for a few months, Colombia. We lived in all, these different places, just picking up and going to the next place. And then I went to Nicaragua for 4 months to work on my book. And I came out of the jungles of Nicaragua and I went to Amsterdam and did a major weekend intensive event with like 20 guys, which was culture shock from going from Nicaragua t-shirt and shorts straight to Amsterdam. And there was a guy that came there from Romania and said, "You have to come visit Romania. I invite you with both hands open to come visit my beautiful country." And Hans and I looked at each other, Romania. All right, let's go. And so we came to Romania. We spent a month here. And it's my ancestors are from this part of the world. Like the Carpathian Mountains are between Ukraine and Romania, in the north of Romania. And my grandmother and grandfather came from a small village just over the border from Romania into Ukraine. And so, it's not very far from here. And so when I come here and the Eastern European feel of the weather and the wind and the food and the women, it's just my DNA is here for sure. And I absolutely love it here. And so when it came to Romania, I realized, wow, and there's such an abundance of beautiful, giving women here. It's like, it shocks your heart to, that kind of thing. It breaks your heart to see this kind of abundance of great women. And so I came back here that was 4 years ago, and I came back fairly often to the point where I basically now I bought an interest in a hostel here, which is Castle Amorata now. So yeah, I'm here now, and I'll still travel from here, but I'm going to base. This is the base of Ars Amorata is going to be Bucharest for sure. Hans is based here; he lives here, and we will travel out from here, but we'll always come back to this hub. So to me, it's the center.
Yeah. Do you feel that being having a center point, that you've attached yourself to more things?
Not really. Like I live in a small room. Deanna
still got a suitcase?
Still got a suitcase, and I got a bit more clothes maybe, but not much. No, I've still got like 2 pairs of shoes.
Yeah. Hey,
and no, I I lived in the corporate world and I had so much stuff. I had all this stuff, and I bought new stereos and new TVs, and every room had this, and if I ever for whatever act of aliens came down and rewired my brain, and I went back into the corporate world, for instance, back into the same job I had, I would never ever go and accumulate that same volume of stuff, because the lightness on your feet, a feeling of you just have a few things, you have a few options, you don't have to. You only got 2 pairs of shoes. You don't have to which shoes should I wear? It's like your life seems freer because you don't have the choice, and it's the simplicity of it is like, to me, it's marvelous, and you don't need a lot of money to cover it, because we need a lot of jobs and second jobs and in raises and stuff, because of all the stuff we accumulate. And we have to, and our TV's not big enough anymore. We have to get another one, so we put that on the credit card. And so, because of all of our volume of stuff, this is why we have to work so hard and be so productive all the time. So when you have just a few things, and you limit it down to just the bare necessities, your life seems so light and free. And you can sit on the balcony with a glass of champagne with your girlfriend and look out at the sky, and because you don't have this. There's something about it. It was I mean, Hans and I used to when we'd travel, we'd go to, say, Panama. And we would go stay in a hostel, in a private room in a hostel in Panama. And we'd see these backpackers coming in, and they've got a giant backpack on the back and a giant one in the front, and they're dragging stuff in. And we have these little tiny, carry-on bags, and we're wearing suits. And they would say, "How do you guys do it?" And we said, "Well, what do you have in your backpack?" We've got this tent just in case, but we stay in hostels the whole time.
Yeah, I know,
and it's we still carry around all this volume of stuff, and it's like, and they said, "We're impressed by the way you guys do it. You just relax and you have a little choice, and so you just go."
Yeah.
So anyway, I could talk about that for hours.
No, I think that everybody should do that just for life experience. I mean, number one, You have to have faith in yourself, because that's the one thing. You have the fear of holding on to all this stuff, man, go.
Yeah. Yeah.
But then the second thing is you don't need anything, and have some faith in humanity and people. And, just in a very, I guess, layman, maybe American sense, if I went traveling somewhere, like if I learned, let's say if I bared down and studied all the, how to be cool, be a PUA,
Right.
have the most stuff. Like if I studied all of that and went out to a bunch of clubs and did it all, I've actually proven that I could have some pretty cool experiences with that. But if I just took a backpack and went to Mexico and didn't have an agenda and just kind of talked to people that I met, man, I would have a life-changing adventure
Of course.
every day. It's just so different. So, and sure, there may be some bad days, but it's just so different. The way we live now, I mean, God, I'm pretty tied down myself, is very limiting. And we need to, God, just realize like really how we were born to be and see the world every day and the simple things. Man, that being said, somebody wrote in about the essence of women. Let me actually look exactly what he was saying, but he's referencing your book, and it says, all physicality aside, what specific quality do you love most about female essence? What do you love most about women? You mentioned gratitude, but maybe I missed the core of what you look to most about femininity, or was it compassion?
Whew. What is the essence of female grace? I wrote in my book that the essence of beauty, of truly beautiful women, is gratitude. In other words, not gratitude to you or gratitude to, but just a sense of gratitude of being alive and being able to sit and enjoy the essence of the day. The quality that I admire the most of women, or that I like the most of women, that draws me most of women, me personally, and not everybody. The thing I like the most is, how do I say it? Because it's not exactly the word I want to use, but I'm going to use it and then try and just explain it. The thing I like the most is devotion.
Mm-hmm.
Devotion. That I'm excited to show up in this world, and I'm excited to express myself in this certain way, and I'm delighted to present my energy to the world and in who I am. And I really admire and am attracted to a woman who does the same thing, who puts it forth in a great sense of she puts forth her full energy. And I don't know, for me that I could never for instance, to go to bed with a woman who just wants, and just because you wheeled her up at the bar and you're going to have sex with her, to me, there's nothing in that. I mean, I've had one night stands in my life, but there's nothing in it if she isn't there completely, just as excited as you are.
Right.
So this concept, the pickup artist concept of last minute resistance and trying to convince a woman, that's so foreign to who I am. I don't want to convince a woman of anything. I want her to be just as delighted and excited and honor what we have. I might have just met her, but I want her to honor the connection without saying, okay, well, you have to do this and you have to prove this and you have to jump through these hoops. I don't do anything. If a woman's playing hard to get, I'm gone, man. I'm long gone. Because I'm not hard to get. I think I'm excited about life, and I know I like you. I see all these girls here in Austin, Texas, wherever I am. I see all these girls, and there's something about you that intrigues me, and I want to. And you're the one I like. I like this girl. I like you, and I don't know why. And I want that same energy back. And then I feel like, wow, okay, now I can show up on this earth in because I'm in the presence of a great feminine energy, as opposed to you have to prove to me something and blah 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 blah. So to me, it's not the most accurate word, but devotion. If a woman is not excited to be there, just as I'm as excited, I'd rather not. I'd rather just I'm not going to convince her to go to bed, and then okay, well, I managed to get this girl in there. I seduced her into bed. I don't want any of that. I want her to be just as excited and present as I am. So to me,
her devotion to her own femininity, not necessarily to you, but
yes,
yeah,
devotion to her, devotion to the experience that we both know is there.
Yeah.
I could feel it, she could feel it, and to honor that and say, yeah, there's something there that transcends, the trivialities of like normal, like for instance, dating and like going, trying to figure things out and trying to convince you to go to bed, or I'm going to buy you a bunch of drinks and see if the kind of triviality of that. Just say, wow, there's a greatness here in you that is appealing to the greatness of my masculine core. And a woman that honors that, that's a great woman. That's a great, great, great woman.
Yeah. No, man. I mean, it's even when you were talking before about the woman that, I forget how you worded it, but you see gives everything to you.
Yeah.
And there's so many women that give, but not the full. I mean, it's humbling when you see that. You're like, God, I get to exist in this. This is like amazing, unique moment,
You never want to leave.
but very, very rare, It's sadly
Very rare.
because it doesn't have to be,
Yeah.
Just like you said, any man can do it, but few men actually step up to it. But that being said, I want to ask you about your business, because you live this, lifestyle where it's very much your own, very unique, yet
Yeah.
you've built a business, a group of men. That's how I see it, that are very consistent in what they say, very different, totally different presence, totally different mentality. How did you do this? Because from my understanding, you do your own thing. Like
Yeah.
it's really your philosophy being taught,
Yeah.
not through you directly, but through a voice of men, instructors, whatever it is. How did this develop?
Well, the message has been formed and massaged over the years, and I think it's a beautiful message, and I think it's a needed message, and it's a co-created message. And I think for me, like I used to do seminars, or I do a lecture or something, and I do a weekend intensive, for instance, and I would, get to know the guys' names for that weekend, shake their hand, and get my picture with them at the end of the weekend, and then I'm gone to the next town, like cowboy riding from town to town, Johnny Appleseed planting a seed, right? And what we discovered over the years, because it's such a fundamentally, the guys that are attracted to the message are have such camaraderie with each other, and such a desire to gather together. I mean, the Amorati logo, the A, has been tattooed on probably 20, 25,
Yes.
30 guys.
Yeah, Hans,
so-
when I met Hans when he first started hooking up with you, and he was like, look at this tattoo, this is how much I believe in it. And I was like, what are you talking about, man? But
there's guys from Denmark to Colombia that have that tattooed on their body. And it isn't because of they're not tattooing my face on them. They're tattooing something that says, this gave me the state of grace of and a band of brothers I didn't have before. This concept that I belong to something incredible, with a great conversation, which isn't just about soccer and beer. And so what we discovered was the guys themselves formed in our wake. We would do like a seminar or a talk, a lecture, something like that, and the guys were gathering together behind us and said, we want more, we want to keep gathering. And so the Amorati network of guys really just it's a 10-year-old concept, but it kind of formed almost in spite of us. And we've got guys, members all over the world who they're saying, we're in the same conversation as this great conversation. We may not have everything figured out.
Yeah.
But boy, we're in this great conversation. So it's great.
Yeah. There's one question that I personally have for you, but do you know Monica Bellucci, and do you think she's a beautiful woman?
No comment.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, no, I think she's a fantastically beautiful woman. I think she's what she has? She has a quiet beauty about her, which is
I've only seen her
thing.
on the screen, man.
Yeah.
But Jesus Christ, man,
there's something about her, right?
Man, such a really interesting actress. Because I mean, that's all I know her as, or model, or whatever. Because the way she carries herself, man, she just knows it in such a slight way of her face, her body, how to use it. But then also the roles she's chosen
Yeah.
are insane, and makes me like her more for that, because it's just so
And
crazy.
don't you have a sense with a woman like that that you can go out, you fight your battles, and be the warrior out on the
Oh God,
battlefield, and then you can crawl back into the cave
God,
and curl up in her lap like a cat.
yeah.
You know what exactly what I mean.
And
If you don't
with
have that quality in a woman, there's nothing.
God, so much about her actually carries the essence of that. Her body, but not in this overt, like, she carries the absolute beauty, I think, of herself physically, but in her face and how she
Yeah,
uses her expression is really where that comes from. A pretty amazing thing. But I've always thought that,
I'm with you, man.
yeah, hey, we're there, we're there. But anyway, yeah, no comment. Okay, man, one last thing that I will ask you is, geez, man. So we covered a lot of these questions that Jim had given to me, but man, in this society where we're told what beauty is, where there's a commodity of beauty, where there's a definition of what we're supposed to have, what we're supposed to be. Every guy, he gets exposed to it, whether he's watching
Yeah.
porn, whether he's seeing women, but it's the woman that he can't have. How does a guy get more in touch with that beautiful feminine presence, this beauty, this art, this expression that not just the expression that an artist made 200 years ago, but the
Yeah.
expression that we can get into now, today,
Yeah.
with a woman? Where does a man start? What is the first thing that an Amorati would do?
You know what he should do? The first thing he should do is start to call it out. Start to call it forth with his words. Not with his actions, trying to say, okay, well, I'm going to be this guy, you be this woman. Speak to women in a way that exactly what you just said. The way you just phrased that question, change it into a statement and say that to women. I'm seeking to elicit this kind of beauty out of my experiences in life, out of the women I meet, including you. And speak this kind of language, speak these kind of things. What you just phrased in a
Right.
beautiful question, phrase it into a sentence, and say it to the women you meet. This is what I'm looking for. I'm looking for a different experience. I want to know the profundity of my experience in life, and I want to make the greatest memories I can, and I want to be surrounded by beauty. And I'm talking to you.
In a sense of seduction and exchange, if a man puts that out there, look, I want beauty and connection and
Yeah.
all the capabilities of the art that you have within you. If I were to say that to a woman, how does that man learn the skill to actually nurture that out of her?
Well, like I said, if like guys are trying to show with their actions and trying to get a response from women and get a behavior from women from their actions, to try and say, okay, well, I'm gonna show up and let her know that I'm a sexual man, and so they be all kind of aggressive. The greatest thing I think a guy can do is to speak it with his words how he wants it to be. Just the ball is always in her court. Don't ask for anything. Just say, hey, would you like to go for a drink with me, or would you like to go for coffee? Say, I would. In my worldview, what you're basically saying is, you and I should go for coffee because I would like that, because that's how I see the world. My dear, can want something completely different than that. That's okay. I didn't ask you for anything. I just said I made my statement. I would like to see you again. I don't know why, but there's something about you, and I would like you and I should go for a drink. There's no
Man,
question in there. There's nothing that can be rejected because you're just speaking your truth constantly.
it's interesting because as you're saying this, I'm thinking of what people may think, like, well, I can't just say that. I get all this friction. But as I think about it and looking back at my own experience, what if I took that chance? And this is really what guys listening to this should think about. If you take that chance with your life, yeah, you get some friction, you get some resistance, you get some people rejecting you. Man, that is your chance to live your ideal, though. Your path, your passion. Man, beautiful, beautiful thing. Man, we got to have you back in some way, just to talk to you, man. And also, it would be great to talk to Hans or Jordan or Zhao or any of those guys, because you guys have such a rich, amazing message that only comes out. Well, I don't want to say only comes out, but comes out so amazingly in a conversation. So I really appreciate it, man. You're an amazing dude.
I'll come back anytime.
Yeah, cool. How do people find out about you and all that sort of stuff?
Well, right now you go to zanperrion.com. and we're reinventing and rewriting the website arsamorata.com and all our programs. We have an online university program, etc. I have a book. Hello, look, it's called The Alabaster Girl, which you can buy on Amazon in Kindle form or
Yeah.
in real form. It took me 10 years to write this, and it is
Wow.
everything that. You know what? It's interesting because I think it took me. It was a year ago that I finished it, almost a year ago, and yet there's very little that I've discovered or thought about since then that isn't in the book. Like I'm
Wow.
shocked. I'm shocked how comprehensive it is, and I'm
Yeah.
shocked that I got it done, and I'm shocked that it's like it's out of my system, and it's like it's vomited out of my system. It's over there, and I hope guys like it, and um, yeah, it's phew. I'm going to write another book. I'm starting another book now, and it's going to be like a novel about I don't know, a mouse or a boy and his dog or something. It's going to be a
Boy in the
simple
woods.
150 page book about a little boy skipping through the woods. I can't write this thing again.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know,
No, man, that's amazing because you're a guy that constantly thinks, and the philosophy of life is this, huge exchange
yeah,
with you. That's the essence of Zan. But, and also, I mean, Hans has said, you're one of the wisest men that he's ever known. And, and I think that comes out through the experience. And man, I'm glad you put out the book because it's there for people to see.
yeah.
Man,
It's everything I could possibly do. It's like I said, it took me 10 years, birthday to birthday.
God,
And yeah, of like fighting with it and wrestling with it and hating it, and it finally became something that I said, yeah, that's what I've been trying to say all the. I mean, I could have put this book out 5 years ago after 3 or 4 years of writing it. It would have been a cool book. Guys would have said, "Oh, I got this book by Zan. It's cool. I learned this and I learned that," but it would not have been an honest book. And
right.
for me, it had to have all the good and all the bad in it. So it's like it's not a book that makes me look good. In fact, it's not even about me. So, um, but it is authentic as I can make it be without trying to be cool. If you know what I mean.
Yeah, yeah. Well, man, got to come to Bucharest, especially to check out some of
Come,
those plays because man, I love seeing a good play.
you'd like
It's
it. You would
just
like
one
it. She's
to me
excited.
one of the highest forms of art. Just great orchestration of everything.
She's doing a play right now with one of the most famous directors in Romania. She's just designing it right now, and it's about Casanova.
Wow, that's
And
great.
she's just in the preliminary meetings of lighting that play, that great play about Casanova.
Whenever you work with a great director, however they direct, man, it's just really cool because some direct very technically, some direct, but their vision is expressed so well, in very different ways. So it's very, very cool when you work
That's
with somebody
cool.
that good. Man, family, kids, anything like that on the like, is this an urge for you? Do you want this in
Well,
your life?
Dan and I are hanging out, and she's I'm based in Bucharest here. She's based in Bucharest, and she's over there looking at me right now and listening to me talk about lighting design. So she's all excited. Um, yeah, it's who knows how things go
Yeah,
in this. Yeah,
cool.
you're
Well,
still in
man,
Austin, right?
I'm still in Austin. Yeah, have family here and all this sort of stuff. We saw you. This is a very Zan thing. Let me just say this. So we came to one of Johnny Saporno's things. I forget
Okay.
what year, but Eric invited us. We were already in Vegas, and he said, "Hey, come and see
Oh,
me
in
speak."
Vegas.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, and and you were there, but we were just in the audience watching Eric speak Hypnotica, and my my partner and I, Maria, and she's a very, very tall one. She's 6 foot tall. Always, man, this is from day one with her. Had that. They're clearly two different people, Monica Bellucci and her, but had that presence of holding
Okay.
herself. And so I was just like, boom. I just is always kept me engaged. And when you were talking about the beauty of a woman giving herself to you, like I'm humbled by it. I'm like, wow, you chose me. You choose me every day. Like this is
Wow. Yeah. Yeah.
unreal. It's just such an awesome thing. And to go through that, you've been with your woman for 3 years.
Almost 3 years. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, we've been over 2, not 3 yet, but there's that wave of relationships. And actually, something I probably should have asked you, man. But we saw you at Johnny Soporno's thing, and you would not stop looking at her. And I remember we left. We left, like, you guys are on stage. It's like you and Johnny and John Lichtenberg and Eric. There's like this panel. Some dude started crying or something, and Eric's like trying to do damage control on that or something because I guess he got too intense. I remember. Yeah. Okay, so we're like, we got to go because we had an appointment, and cool seeing you, Eric. And I just remember you were like, wait, you're like stopping Maria. And I was like, oh man, that's Zan. Zan doesn't see any men in the room, only sees the beauty. It's just, that's always just how I've seen you. It's just so it's so honest. I mean, it's just something that is actually very cool to see. Man, one last thing, I know it's late for you, man.
No problem.
But relationships, this was the number one question. I just hosted the 21 convention in Tampa. There's like 30 guys in the audience. They didn't give a shit about pickup. Well, I don't want to say that, but they did not care about it. All they wanted to know about relationships and how they started. And it really made me think, I'm in a good relationship now. I've had plenty of bad relationships. There's nobody in the scene. There's very few guys. I say this on podcast after podcast of guys that I could actually talk to about what to do next. I could talk to John Lichtenberg, I could talk to Eric, in terms of, I don't know personally about your relationships, but in terms of women and seduction and your philosophy of how you see people, I could talk to you.
Yeah.
What about relationships made you how did you know? What made you that part of being a man and being able to be responsible for a woman and her emotions in that way?
Yeah, that's a deep question. And
well, give me the short one.
Well, the short one is, there's, oh boy, I wrote a lot about relationships in my book, and it's the concept is I don't know anything about psychology or that kind of thing, or evolutionary biology and this kind of stuff about relationship. All I know is that there's some moments in your life when someone comes into your life that makes the greatest women for a man's life is the women that can see the potential in him that he can't see in himself.
Yeah. Oh, yes, man.
And when you have a woman like that to push you to greater heights than you could possibly do yourself, because you have it in you, but you just can't see it. And the greatest women in a relationship are the ones that see that potential in you and inspire you to those heights. So, boy, I could talk about relationships for a long time here, man.
Yeah, sorry.
Maybe it's
next
for another
time.
Another call. But I believe in it, and I believe in the concept. I mean, we talk about the usual things like communication, all that kind of stuff. But there's something different than that. Something different than that.
No, I agree. When you come home or just are in the presence of a woman who believes in you in that level, it made me realize I didn't know how in deficit I was of that my whole life. And I had been with many women. For it. Yeah. Crazy. Cool, man. You probably got to go. If you keep me talking, I'll talk for fucking ever. So, and I always hate it when I'm kept on podcasts too long. Hey man, good stuff. We got to do it again.
Thank you, Steve. I would do it again. No problem. In a second.
Yeah. Awesome.